Hi guys! So today's lesson is going to be for Thursday, April 16th. You don't have a bell ringer today. We're going to recap the slides that we talked about last, and then we have 3 slides today. One writing, 2 pictures, and then you're going to watch a TED Ed, and I'm so excited. This is my stuff. Here we go. Okay, so the last thing we talked about was the Bay of Pigs invasion. It was this slide. It was titled The Bay of Pigs Invasion, and this was John F. Kennedy's first major event of his presidency, and it was a huge failure. The New York Times, we have a picture here. The New York Times sent out kind of like a memo saying like, oh, we're going to maybe attack and invade Cuba, and Cuba found out. They were ready for us, and the invasion was a complete failure. And John F. Kennedy and the administration ended up paying basically the communists to free our people. And instead of, taking down communism, we end up paying them. So it was kind of a big disappointment for John F. Kennedy and the administration for sure. So he had realized from that point on that he will not make that mistake ever again, and that this is so serious that those kinds of mistakes are unacceptable, can't happen. So slide 19 today is titled The Berlin Crisis, and you'll see we're going to watch a TED Ed. I'm so excited. I have a picture for you all for this one as well. And this is a big one. So, the Berlin Crisis. Now, we know that Germany, here we are, Art 101. We know that Germany is split between West Germany and East Germany, and this dot right here is Berlin. So let's go inside Berlin. Well, Berlin is also split between West Berlin and East Berlin. And just like the east side of Germany is controlled by the Soviet Union, the east side of Berlin is going to be controlled by the Soviet Union, and the west side of Berlin is going to be controlled by the United States. There's going to be a wall built in the middle of Berlin, the city of Berlin. So let's start with this slide here. What is the Berlin Crisis? Well, like I said, John F. Kennedy vowed to not make a mistake like the Bay of Pigs ever again. So he invited Nikita Khrushchev. Remember, he is the president, they call him premier of the Soviet Union, and they meet in Austria, like a neutral ground. This is 1961. The president hoped to ease tensions with the Soviet Union, but instead, Nikita Khrushchev demanded that the United States recognized communist East Germany, so we need to recognize them as an independent country. And he said he wanted the United States to leave West Berlin. So Khrushchev says at this meeting, you need to recognize East Germany as an independent country. And you also need to leave West Berlin. And John F. Kennedy goes, no, we're not going to do that. You have taken over, which we also took over, Germany, and our plans were supposed to be temporary because we need to help them establish, a government. And you've now taken over and completely changed their economic systems that they've never had something like this before. You've taken over, you're also a dictator. We aren't a dictatorship, and we want to institute capitalism. We're not going to recognize East Germany as an independent country, and we're not going to leave West Berlin because the people need us. So that first bullet point here, Berlin had been a problem for the Soviet Union. The western half of the city was an island of freedom surrounded by East Germany. West Berlin is a free area in the middle of Soviet-controlled communist dictatorship. East Germany. It's crazy. In the first half of 1961, 200,000 East Germans escaped communism by slipping past the guards safely to West Berlin. So people would flee communist East Germany, by making their way to West Berlin. And then from that point on, if you're in West Berlin, you can just easily slip on over to West Germany. I say easily like it's so casual, like it's easy for me to walk out the door. It's hard, but it's much easier if you're in West Berlin already. So 200,000 East Germans escaped through West Berlin to make it to safety and to freedom out of the communist-controlled territory. And so Kennedy responds by vowing to protect West Berlin. He calls reserve troops to active duty, and he launches a program to build shelters in case of a nuclear attack because he just made Nikita Khrushchev very angry by not giving in to his demands. And he began to build up troops in West Germany. So So Nikita Khrushchev is very upset with West Berlin. He wants full control of this. It's in his territory anyway. He's angry and he's not getting what he wants. And people are escaping. Why aren't they happy living in communist-controlled East Germany or East Berlin? Why don't they like it? Okay, they're leaving. They're trying to escape. And he doesn't like that. This is just a straight shot to freedom, and he doesn't like that. So what he does is he builds the Berlin Wall, which is a vocab word. And I do want to preface with really kind of like the main reason as to why I love the Cold War so much is because my dad was actually drafted for the Berlin crisis. So my dad was stationed in Germany for this crisis in particular. Now the Cold War, not necessarily fighting, but as you can see, John F. Kennedy is building up our military, and that was my dad being drafted over there and sent to protect the people of West Germany from an invasion from Nikita Khrushchev. So my dad wasn't necessarily in Berlin, but he was in Germany, in the American occupied territory, obviously. So there's my dad over there trying to stop the communists, and growing up hearing those stories, he truly very much despised the communists. I mean, he was drafted, and any war being drafted and pulled from your everyday life is difficult. And so even more so for my dad, he was drafted twice. The second time was by mistake, and we'll talk about this next week. I have, more information on that, and I have stories to tell you about that. But yeah, being pulled, sent to Germany to fight the communists. Imagine me as a little kid hearing these stories all the time. And now you know why I'm so terrified of Russia and communism is because I grew up like, oh, those dang commies, it's like, it's a real thing. So my dad is sent over there for the Berlin crisis to kind of, be ready just in case Nikita Khrushchev wants to invade West Germany and take over all of Germany. And the Berlin Wall is built, and this is part of that TED-Ed, and I'm going to talk about the TED-Ed after this slide. I'm going to look at pictures and stuff because it is such a good one. It's one of their longer ones. It's 6 minutes, and I say this for every single TED-Ed. I know that, but this is a really good one. It explains, what people went through, having a wall just like established in the middle of a city. This is dividing families, neighborhoods. I have it on the side. Families, neighborhoods, streets, and cemeteries. And it is a process to get over. So before there were checkpoints, I have, there were fencing and barbed wire, and 25,000 troops as guards were soon replaced with a high concrete wall to block future escapes to freedom. So these are, and I have pictures to show you, a concrete wall. And you can't cross anymore whenever you want. Before it was armed guards and barbed wire, before people could hop over the barbed wire, and before there were checkpoints where you could there's paperwork and there was a whole process, you had to get approval to cross over into West Berlin. Maybe your job was over there. Well, if you had the proper paperwork, you could go up to the guard and say, this is my paperwork. I'm supposed to be here from this time to this time. I'll be back at this checkpoint at the end of my workday, whatever it was. But it took a long time. And imagine everybody else in the city is in line behind you. And I have a video clip that I'm going to show you next week from a movie based on a true story. It really shows the whole processes of trying to cross over into West Berlin or vice versa. But no one would be going into East Berlin. You were always trying to go to West Berlin. So this is separating families. And keep in mind, this goes up in 1961. The Berlin Wall does not fall until 1989. Families are going to be separated from 1961 to 1990. That is a very long time. A very long time for you to live divided and closed off from your family. Think about the struggles that we're going through today of, not being able to visit our friends or our family members, or if we have loved ones like in a nursing home, and we can't, if people all over are telling stories of if they have family members that are sick and they can't visit them in the hospital, right? That is very difficult. It is a very real and difficult thing for us to go through. And this is a wall that you had no say in. The dictator of the Soviet Union is just plopping up a wall because he's upset that people are escaping to freedom. This is not good. So Kennedy and Vice President Johnson, they visited West Berlin. And they gave a speech. They're trying to reassure the people of Berlin, and they're saying, you know, we are here for you. We're not gonna leave you hanging. We're not gonna leave. The United States has control of West Berlin. East Berlin, you're right across this wall here, but we will remember you, and we will be here for you. Don't worry. It was his famous speech. It's the Ich bin ein Berliner speech. It translates to I am a Berliner, basically meaning like I am here with you. It's a very famous speech that John F. Kennedy gave. So the Berlin crisis is basically like, okay, we have the Iron Curtain that separates communism and democracy on the other side, but now let's make a physical, actual barrier. The Iron Curtain's not real. It was just a metaphor. Let's make a physical barrier between East Berlin and West Berlin because we don't want people to escape. And he's trying to prove a point. He's basically saying, this is a communist dictatorship over here. You need to recognize it as a communist dictatorship, and you need to recognize it as mine. And the United States is like, no, we're not going to do that. So the Berlin Wall is built 1961, doesn't come down until 1989, and this the TED-Ed really explains it fairly well.